All right, we're recording now. Hi, it's Melanie here, and it's the team from Trillium. And today we're talking about this amazing, huge, ginormous word called illusion. And so we already started talking about it. When I started brainstorming, let me just tell you a couple of things just to get us going. Some of the words that came to mind were perception, truth versus lies, how is perception manipulated, what is magic, how is illusion as it relates to the service to self or a service to others kind of mentality, and how is illusion, how does that relate to when we fragment ourselves, almost when our personality splits. We create illusion sometimes. I put the word theater. How do we see through it? um, Going within, having that inner knowing so we can see through it. And what is a veil? Knowing versus ignorance. Those are words that came out when I was thinking about the word illusion. So what thoughts do you guys have about illusion? I'll just throw it out there.
I think mine are a little bit, I don't know if the word would be simple, but the ones that came to mind for me were stress, anxiety, and then perception, and what is here, what is not, fear. That's what came to mind for me.
Interesting. It's funny because I actually almost had the exact opposite thoughts.
Wow.
Mine was like possibility. Yeah. Perception was one too, but it was like all about so many possibilities and options and whatever, understanding illusion and what it might really mean from my perception. So that's kind of funny that literally you can have so many opposites of the same word.
Yeah,
so cool.
I think, and that's where I go as well. I see this time where we are on the planet as the opportunity to merge all of ourselves. And so, when you look back at your life and the different choices you've made, there's really no mistakes, as we've talked about. It's learning, it's gathering, and it feels like a way to merge. And so when you can learn so much from your subconscious or your dream state or things that you perceive as maybe illusion or maybe more real than what you perceive is real in this 3D reality. And it's a great topic. There's just so many ways it can go. So
that's why the word truth kept coming up for me. I was like, oh yeah, we're always like trying to align with truth, but when the only thing that's really real is the here and now, then isn't everything an illusion? And how do we reconcile that? Because maybe somebody's version of events, though it doesn't really relate to a lot of other perspectives, maybe that is their truth, and that there isn't necessarily an illusion there, but yet it is an illusion. So it's one of those paradoxes.
And I'm kind of with you that everything's an illusion. I wouldn't have believed this concept maybe 4 years ago, but at this point now, it's like, I don't think we can separate illusion and reality anymore. It's like we're just at another level of illusion, what we're calling reality. It's what we're perceiving as reality, but just because that's our perception doesn't mean that is reality, except that we're perceiving it as such, so it is. So it's kind of like reality, like you said, is basically whatever you are perceiving it to be is real for you. Whether it's real for somebody else or not is completely none of your business. Your business is about what's real for you and following that, I feel, and letting other people's illusions guide them until it doesn't bring them the joy they're looking for anymore. Then maybe they'll consider your illusion. And maybe they'll want to jump over to another illusion. This is how I see like timeline jumping and things like that. It's like we're all creating our individual illusions based upon what we want to see happen in our reality. Or maybe we're doing it unconsciously where we're just following fear. We're following, somebody else's storyline that isn't serving our highest good until we remember we can create our own story, our own illusion, our own illustration, whatever you want to call it. And when we do, then, if people like our story better, they might come join our illusion or our story, our experience. I don't know, just my thoughts on it. But
with that being said, I think that comes back to what resonates most deeply within us. So when I describe those words I did in the beginning, that's me operating outside of myself and away from my center, my core, my true values, my beliefs, my deep, deep seated beliefs. And when I am able to recognize and come up against that and go, oh, well, that's an illusion, that's a perspective, whatever it might be, that's when you feel that shift. And you don't have to perceive things as being stressful or full of anxiety or whatever. You just perceive them that they're here or they're there, but it is all an illusion. And so then when you sit back and you're able to recognize that piece for myself, again, coming down a little bit deeper to the next layer in myself, like what speaks most truly to my heart? Do I really, truly believe that? No, I don't believe that. Then everything starts to get lighter. The heaviness of something just dissipates. The darkness of something just kind of illuminates a little bit. But then other things around me, like Randi was talking about, well, other people see it and they're like, well, maybe I'll go, oh yeah, maybe that does speak to me right now, or maybe it doesn't. But like attracts like, or whatever it might be, it's all going to lift those vibrations within yourself, and then it lifts those vibrations of everyone around you, and shifts perspectives. So I feel like that's where illusions are for me right now.
It seems like what we are considering illusions are just facets, and that's why I love that I did include the word magic, is because there are people that have like illuminated or occult knowledge, and so they can use their knowledge of the nature of reality or use magic and start to kind of manipulate one of these facets and bring people into it. And that's kind of like the Hollywood and the way the government and the media is working. They're creating this facet, this illusion, and it is like some aspects of it I would identify with as true, but I think like the Great Awakening is about being open to the multifaceted nature of reality. And the more of us that can start to get on board with like the unlimited possibilities of how reality is, like the more expanded we'll be. And then we'll be able to create our own facet of what's true and bring in things that are like more harmonious and more beautiful. But it's really important that we realize how people are manipulating this facet, and they're creating, I guess, this illusion, and it's pulling us all into it. But we don't necessarily have to get stuck on that facet. Like we can view things now from a multi-dimensional perspective, and I think that's our goal. So when we say we're seeing through illusions, I think what we're doing is seeing things more holistically, if that makes any sense.
It does come back to that, as we've spoken in many videos, being rooted in the core of your authentic being and divine connection, whatever that means for you. And the stronger you are in and with that, the less persuaded you can be by things that, you can witness. I watched a video recently, and I liked that the woman said, when I watch movies, because there's a lot of learning in many of the movies. There's a lot of, seeded truths in these movies that are coming out and series that are coming out that can be very beneficial, but there can also be subliminal things that are kind of meant to try to program us. And so I liked what she says when she watches anything. She says, I am observing, I am not absorbing. Like, I'm a sovereign being, and I'm observing this as a whole being for my growth and learning, but and really kind of, claimed that. And I thought that was really powerful, because you can then, I think it's powerful. There's power in words. It's prayer, it's protection, and you can then witness things and not be affected by them, because I think there is a push to try to persuade and direct and make people who maybe don't know what they're kind of clinging to go in a certain direction. And there can be some nefarious things behind that. I don't think there has to be.
I love, love, love that you brought that. I actually wrote that quote down today.
Oh, wow.
She said, "I'm here to observe, but not absorb."
Yeah,
and that so stood out to me as well. And I totally had that same thought with our conversation today, because it's like, that's really what we're doing. We're observing all of these potentials and then saying, what do I like the most? And you know, and it's not bad to call out the bullshit stuff, because when we call that out, we say, I don't want to participate in that anymore. It's not going to move forward in my reality. This is coming to an end. So we create a scenario in our outward experience of reality that says, okay, well, all that's coming to an end. We're coming to a place where we have our sovereignty. Really, we've always had it. We just were looking at the perspective of not having it, right? We were playing in that perspective. What does it feel like to believe that someone controls us? What does it feel like to live under these spells, these magic spells? And then to break free of them. So I see it as, we've always had this freedom. We've always had this sovereignty, but we allow ourselves to experience what this experience is like, just to decide what's next, and just to have that experience of being in that energy and then choosing out of it. And so I think that's like my new phrase to now look at all of reality. I'm here to observe, but not to absorb. Meaning I don't have to take it all in on me. I'm just observing what's happening, saying, okay, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. I've played in both. I know what I like now, but maybe I wouldn't have known that unless I played in that for a while, right? And then I know I think I like this. I'm going to go play over here and keep playing with that and creating in this energy now, instead of this victim, I'm, trapped energy. I'm playing in this, I'm sovereign. I'm the creator. I'm the creator of the universe. I can create it to be anything I desire. Let me play over there. What do I desire? And then you start asking those questions. You start creating your own illusion instead of playing in someone else's or observing someone else's too long.
So do you think that's why our souls chose this experience where there's like all these veils? We don't necessarily remember our past lives too well. And here we were born into this planet where there's all kinds of like forces trying to fight for us to get on board with their illusions and stuff. So you think all that is just contrast for us to grow as a soul and just to remind ourselves that we are creating this experience?
I think that's part of it. And I think too, it's liberating ourselves from others' illusions. So I think we have been trapped in a way in others' illusions just because we forgot our power and we forgot that we could create. And I think that religion plays a big part in that. You're taught from religion from day one that you give all your power, all your worship, all of your energy to something else. And so then you look at politicians, you look at people in this world that are taking that same energy. They're trying to make themselves gods by literally taking your energy as you feed it to them. So as you hold it within you and remember, I'm the creator. I'm creating my reality, which means you can create anything you want. They can be part of your store if you want to keep that going with you and move it into a space that brings you joy. But when I think it really comes down to it, we truly are all the creators of our own reality, and we must decide what we want to create. And I think that's the biggest thing is if we don't decide, we're going to be living in someone else's illusion, because the story is going to keep playing out whether we're conscious of it or not. It's like a dream. When you're in a dream, it's going, you're not thinking about it, it's just happening. It's like it's running itself. And so if you're not consciously creating in what we call this reality, then a program's just running and you're just following it, and you're not making any choices of what I want to try. That doesn't mean you'll love what you try. You might try something, oh, that sucked, and then you won't want to try it again. But at least you tried it. At least you played in that energy to decide. And so I think maybe we've just been playing in these energies, and now we've been playing long enough that we said, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to go play in this playground, see how this feels.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it seems like a lot of us we have these illusions that are acceptable, right? So there's aspects of ourselves that are nice and kind, and they play well with others. And then people have these shadow sides of themselves, right? And then sometimes we're exposed to both, kind of like what's happening with the Great Awakening. Like, wow, the world kind of has these pretty horrible shadows. It wasn't all like, you know, the things Hillary Clinton says in public, that has nothing to do with who she, well, it does have something to do with, but who she really is kind of this combo. And so I think that's kind of what's exciting moving into the future with our expanded awareness is like, as we integrate our shadows, we're actually like dissolving all these illusions. And it's something to be embraced. But
what does it mean to you to integrate the shadow? Explain that more, integrating the shadow, what your thoughts are.
Well, for a while, I was always trying to like remove my shadow, right? So I'm like, oh, that does, like my anger doesn't exist, or get rid of that, and then suppressing things. And especially talking to you, Randi, and all of you guys, it's like, oh, okay, my shadow's part of me. I want to integrate that. I think a lot of people, they play into the illusion of like the light side of who they are, but that does create illusion because there's this huge part of them that also exists that isn't seen. So to me, the Great Awakening is kind of about integrating both those things and then having the awareness of that integration.
So would you say our shadows are, sorry, Krystal, I didn't mean to, I was just I'll ask more questions. So would you say our shadows are the aspects of us we don't really want people to see, so we kind of hide them?
I think that's what's been happening for a long time. And so we call that like, oh, I'm now aware of this illusion, which was my shadow, which never was an illusion. It was just something we were trying to hide. And that's why I use the word veil, and that comes up so much with the word illusion, because it's like we're trying to fragment or compartmentalize ourselves because we haven't integrated it all. So to me, about dispelling illusions is really just seeing things as they are, as multifaceted. So I think you've definitely helped me to do that. So how do we...
Krystal was going to say something. Krystal, what were you going to say?
Oh, I'm okay. I wasn't going to say anything. I thought it was Christina.
Well, I just think the whole, yeah, I mean, the shadow work, and we've talked about, and so many people right now are going through their dark night of the soul or integrating these aspects of themselves. But, or how many times do we have dreams where we're running from something, and perhaps it's a piece of us that's trying to come back, and we're judging it, we're looking at it in a certain way, when it's really an aspect of us that is just maybe misunderstood, or saying, what about me? I mean, you know, I'm part of you. And so I think it's wonderful to do whatever work, however the work comes about, whether it's through, you know, I mean, there's so many ways you can do this work. You can do work with shamanic work. You can, I mean, there's so many ways to do this work, and that's for each individual to determine. I've tried a little bit of everything, and because I love that. I love seeing all different things, and taking what works, and you know, and passing on what doesn't in the moment, and maybe going back to it. But I think it's really, really powerful. And so back to the geopolitical, you know, arena, that was something like I didn't want to see any of it. I don't want to see any of this. This is not that I didn't believe it was happening, but I didn't want to focus on it. I wanted to focus on love and light, and, you know, radiating all of that, which is awesome, and that will always be a part of me. But there is something very powerful in seeing the truth, and calling bullshit on things, and standing in your power, and integrating, and just being in that. There's something very powerful, and that's, you know, then the more of us that wake up to that and just stand in that truth, then it can happen more easily for others. And I think that's really important. You can't run from any of it. It's going to keep coming after you.
Right. And lies are real, right? I mean, like and I know there's the whole Mandela effect, and like there's different pasts, right? And that's when it gets kind of wonky for me, and maybe you guys can help me understand that. But like there are things that have not occurred, for example, that people will claim did occur, right? A lie. Politicians do it all the time. Like, do you think there's an aspect of lies that is real? You know, like.
Oh, that's a good question. Like maybe in their reality, they believe it to be real.
Yeah.
So maybe we're perceiving it as that's a lie, but they're living this as if this is really real. And like, maybe some of that does have to do with some programming that people have gone through. Some people have really gone through some really horrific things, and that is going to be coming out it's going to be coming out in the
Right.
news, and it's going to be coming out, and there does have to be some measure of compassion, as we
Right.
talked about, to understand that some of these people that have done these things have been victimized from
Right.
very early ages, or this gets into a whole other thing around illusion, the fracturing of the spirit and the psyche into different personalities. I personally know and have witnessed, working in the therapy arena, people that have had dissociative or multiple personalities, and we've met people that have gone through traumatic ritual abuse situations, and that can happen, and that is done to people specifically. So it just opens up a whole other thing about illusion.
Yeah.
And when you
Well,
really are believing you're one thing, and then you have been so harmed or damaged that you create these other completely different realities that may or may not be aware of the others,
yeah.
that's a whole other level.
That's why I've been getting like this vision of a multifaceted diamond, and it's spinning. And to me, like, illusion again is focusing on one little facet of the diamond, and then really it's about seeing the entirety of this whole object. And yeah, like somebody that's a victim of abuse and then they grow up to be an abuser, it's like, okay, yeah, it's true, you're behaving really horrible now, and now you're abusing, but man, when you look at the big picture and you see through the illusion, you do want to call out that behavior. It needs to stop. It's super toxic. But you also like just see that the whole thing for what it is. And I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's where that compassion really comes in, and understanding that, just like I said, that they could be fractionated aspects of ourselves.
Right.
And this is the information that keeps coming downloaded through me, is these what we're perceiving as darkness are those shadow sides of us that we rejected, we decided were bad, we pushed away, we hid in the darkness, we separated ourselves from because of our judgment of, and it took a mind of its own, it took a persona of its own into these what we would now consider horrific expressions of darkness, right? And so this is where when we bring back in, this kind of goes back what I was saying, I kind of got a download about karma and what's our karma versus other people's karma, and how do we, and it basically came down to it's all the same. If it's outside of me, it's also within me. Not meaning I act upon those things, because my light quotient would never go to that level to act upon those. Not that I even have the desire, you know what I mean? Because I don't, but there's a piece within me, there's a piece within all of us of these things that we're seeing outside of ourselves that we rejected, saying, oh, that's horrible, so they're not a part of us right now. But at some point they were. At some point they were part of us, that we decided, okay, this is good, this is bad. We kept judging until it's like, okay, this is who's good. And everything else I'm going to hide or cast out. Well, you can't cast it out and have it not go anywhere. So as we bring these energies back for us to see clearly, which is really what I think we're doing, what's reflecting in the universe right now, in our world, in our country, all of it right now, in our homes, whatever we're seeing back is the parts of us that are still separate, that still are looking to be healed. And we can't heal anything outside of ourselves. So it's not like we can, make these people suddenly good. But like you said, because we understand that that's not who they are. That's not their truth. That's their casted out, rejected, abused, in situations we could never even imagine self that they're showing. Their truth is they're like us, and we're one, and we have they have the capacity for the same light we do if we bring them into our light. So it's like, maybe call it your doppelganger, whatever. It's like the part of you that's your polar opposite, that is out there in your reality somewhere reflecting back to you. And it might be little bits from everything that you see and do, but you can bring all of those back to you through compassion and say, I forgive, and give you ahead of time permission to be who you were, to show me what I needed to do to heal, and then love them back in. And then suddenly you'll see it dissipate through your universe. You'll see this what you thought was evil or bad or whatever will just kind of start to wash away. You'll see it play out in different ways, but it plays out to where you can also benefit from the healing of it if you'll allow that compassion. If you stay in that, I hate you, you're bad, you're evil, you're only going to perpetuate your duality. and you're only going to keep experiencing it.
You're only looking with your eyes. So that's something that I've been working with in the past couple of days, again, with the Course in Miracles. And one of the meditations is, seeing things with your eyes, that you are not this body. And so if you can separate yourself from that and not rely upon your eyes, but be able to just sit rather in the seat and see. When we use the word see, we think of our eyes, but recognize that light, that is deeper, that is within. And that's what I've had to practice, not just with myself, and it goes back to, you tied it all in right there with the whole forgiveness piece as well. But in outward looking and seeing, whatever is happening in the media or politics, or even things with your children and their friends, or whatever's happening, you have to withdraw that sense of seeing with your eyes and understand that you are not of this body, that you have something so much deeper, and not only do you, but other people too.
Very true. And I think that's the biggest thing, is none of us are this body. None of us are this world. We're all just observing it from one perspective, which right now I'm observing it from my perspective. You're all observing from your perspective. We might see things similar, but in a sense, we really are truly all living our own reality based upon our perception of it. So,
Hello.
there's Trey.
Hello.
He's home alone with me today. Tony's out of town, so. Oh, I was going to say one thing real quick, just because we were talking about her. The gal who we were talking about, who said the quote, "I'm here to observe but not to absorb." I don't know her name, but she has the YouTube channel called Lucid Living TV. So highly recommend her stuff. She's got some really, really great insights, I think, and just lots of aha things that come through and stuff I really, really resonate with. And she's very much on the same, I would say, same line as we are with our thoughts and all of that. So, and going back to Mandela effect, can we talk about that for a minute?
Yes, please.
Okay, Trey, can you go on out for a minute, buddy? Okay, love ya. Okay, so I think that was a big wake-up call to many of us to understand multiple timelines, how elusive the illusion really is, and how it really is just, there's so many potentials. So the way I've kind of seen it, the way it's shown me like multiple timelines. When I say it's like my higher consciousness, like bringing downloads through, and it kind of explains things to me, and I'm go, oh yeah, okay, I kind of get that now. Not that I get it even really that well, because it's so complicated sometimes, even when it comes through downlines. It's like being a kindergartner that was just taught algebra, and then 5 minutes later is trying to explain algebra to somebody else, right? So it's not like it's super easy to understand, or especially to explain. But yeah, every time it's like we have a thought that we're not sure on, or a choice that we don't really know what we want to do, our consciousness will almost always, if not always, choose both. And it'll try both potentials. And so there we separate a timeline with ourselves because we don't really know what we want. We're not sure. So it's kind of like, it's like if you went to, hey, Trey, can you please go on out, sweetie? It's kind of loud. Thanks, buddy. You can go play that downstairs, okay? Can you shut the door? So it's like if you went to a restaurant and you're like, do you want this food item or this food item? And you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know which one I'll like. I've never tried either. I've never tried them. So you try both. And it's like, okay, I like that one the most, so I'm going to eat that. I'm going to eat the rest of this one, right? So I think our universe is kind of that same way. It's like when we don't really know what we want, our consciousness chooses by trying both. And then whichever one we liked most, we end up merging our other self that went that direction back with this self that went this direction, because we decided this one was too painful, or this one ended in a way we didn't like it. So we're going to go with the other choice. And then we bring our consciousness over. And I think this is how we're merging our timelines of ourselves. It's like we've played out, and then imagine it's on a big universal scale. We're literally, we've already been through entire timelines of other experiences, came back now to our 0 point and said, okay, you've tried all this. Which one do you want to experience? Maybe we said, I don't like any of them. Let me try again. So now we're creating something new again. I don't know, but that's how I perceive us kind of bringing our aspects of ourselves that Christina was talking about that have been like fractionated back to a wholeness.
So it's really about understanding the nature of the soul. So like we have our own individual soul that we're seeking always to balance and heal and hopefully dispel illusions and to get real about. But then there's like this other layer, which I think each species have, you know, that they share, kind of like the 100th monkey effect. I love that study. I need to reread it. But humans are kind of playing that out too. And I think that's why a lot of us are drawn to the geopolitical picture, because it's another layer of healing that we can do while we're here. And so that is another aspect of self that we're trying to bring into singularity, or I guess 0 point.
And we'll merge that timeline with us with the one that we decide is for our highest good, if you're doing it consciously aware. Now, if you're not consciously aware of it, you're just going to go with the timeline that your energy is resonating with. So if you're just afraid, you're going to go with the timeline that brings you fear. If you're, you know, if you believe that you can't create, you're going to go with the timeline where someone else is creating for you. And so that's where that awareness changes everything. So once you're aware of the game and the bigger picture and how it all works, you're very powerful because you can manipulate it. Everybody's doing it, right? We're all manipulating it to our own highest good. And is that bad? That goes back to the law of one, service to self, service to others. Well, if you're living from that authentic space, then I think it's going to be a good creation because your authenticity is service to others, love of others, love of self, all of it. But if you're in a space of, you know, wanting to control or hurt people, or if you're in a space of fear or any of those vibrations, you're going to create realities that play out those emotions if you're not living from awareness.
And I think that's why awakening gets kind of disturbing, is because you start to realize how we have been manipulated. And you look at every high school student is still reading 1984, George Orwell's book, and it's got all these negative things that totally relate to our timeline now, that the unconscious person and that we see happening all around us is now playing out, going down, you know, we're being monitored, and everything in that book is starting to happen now. And it's like, wow, what if they put a whole different book? Like, I really love Jacques Fresco and his Venus Project. Like, what if every high school student was exposed to the Venus Project and that being a possibility? And you're like, why didn't we do that? Why aren't we doing that with really positive things? It's really crazy. So that's why I think it's important for us to understand a little bit about how reality works and all the different levels of soul and how everything really is just a reflection of ourselves. Then that's how we dispel these illusions and start being really powerful creators. And those of us, hopefully in our heart space, can start to use this knowledge to create on behalf of the collective that's still unconscious, at least give them a nice timeline, you know, something better than 1984.
Yeah. I liked the description from is it Lucid Dreaming? Is that her site?
Lucid Living TV.
Lucid Living. I liked her description of her kind of artistic representation, because she showed a point and then these two, A path, B path, and it's kind of, we're all heading toward the same potentiality, this 0 point, this, she calls it Eden, like we're coming to this point and we're really close to that. And so A and B are kind of just polar opposites of ourself, which are part of ourself, and there's all these kind of choice points. And so like there are people right now that I love dearly, but I really am not in resonance with what I'm focusing on and what I'm seeing as truth. They're so far from that right now that I really honestly have not run into a person that I used to see almost every weekend for like 6 months. And that doesn't mean we won't come back together, and it's fine. It's just fine. It just is what it is. And she's doing her thing and focusing on what she believes to be her highest reality or path, and I'm doing what I'm doing. And if there's no fear about that, then universe will provide to you, all of you, or people that are more in alignment with what I'm believing and feeling. And there doesn't have to be fear of people falling out of your life or going away or losing anything. It's really not any of that. It's just giving space for each person's individual highest choice and path to play out, knowing that we're likely going to be ending up back together at some point as well. And I think that's helped me to kind of understand and not be sad about things or not judge something or over question or over analyze something, and just understand kind of the divinity in it.
Well, that's really interesting. You know, we did our last discussion on authenticity, or one of the discussions. And to me, maybe that is on the axis with illusion on the other side. We have authenticity and illusion. And as we start to get more authentic,
yeah,
you know, I don't know if it's in balance though, because we want to get more authentic. But it does seem like as we awaken, we definitely start, as we release the illusions, the people in our lives change, our jobs change, so many different situations change. That's definitely part of it. As our perception changes. Well, how have you guys?
Just as we change maybe it's just as we become more authentic, it's our perception of everything we're seeing outside changes, because it literally changes to match our authenticity. And authentic is, again, one of those words that there's not really exact authentic. What is authentic? Authentic is the perception you have of yourself from all of your experiences that says, I am this. But how do you know you are until you've experienced all of these illusions to even decide, right? Mm-hmm. So we're always, I think, in creation of our authentic self. It's not just it's always a being. It's becoming. It's always an energy in motion. It's not a stagnant, this is me. Because I guarantee what I thought was the authentic me, which was the authentic me 10 years ago, is completely different to what I consider authentic me now. But yet I was being authentic to what I felt was me. And now I'm being authentic to what I feel is me now. And it changes my outside. So again, I think even what we perceive as authentic is just our illusion as well. But it's our story, because it's what makes sense to us from our stories that we've been playing and what we've perceived from them.
Well, let's go through, let's imagine ourselves 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, think about what kind of illusions you guys have released since then. You can go into religion or the gender illusions, relationships, how you parent. You know, I was like you, Randi. I was really religious. I was raised with that, what I would consider now to be an illusion. Well, some of it's illusion. And then obviously some of it for me is very real, very tangible experiences. So it wasn't all an illusion. And I learned some really great things. So that's kind of, maybe that's it. I'm realizing that wasn't necessarily my illusion. It was just me looking at it from a more expanded perspective. Now, some of the really illusions I've had, like around relationships or being a woman, like, you know, we have to be submissive. We have to, you know, try to make our husbands happy, or that, like, I need a husband, you know, all those things. So me 10 years ago definitely has either released the illusions or integrated a more expanded view of myself. So I haven't quite decided how I want to say that. But so what kind of illusions have you guys let go of, or I guess integrated? Let's think 10 years ago.
So for me, 10 years ago, I would say the majority of anything that I focused on was completely external and completely based off of this illusion of how things should look, how things should be. My perception of how to be a parent was very different, because I looked externally for that. As a person in society, I just looked at everything externally. You know, oh, we should drive this, we should wear this, we should talk this, we should walk this, we should, and there was not a lot of, well, any time that I did it and actually take time to look at whatever it is that I was doing, I felt disconnection, complete disconnection. I didn't feel joy. And any time that I didn't feel joy, then I turned and I looked externally once again and kept running in that direction, away from what truly felt good in my gut or in my body. So for me, that was definitely 10 years ago. And that's really shifted, and shifted severely, I would say, in the last year, probably. But over time, always leading back to this point, and then diving really deep into that study of fear and looking at things from that perspective that these are illusions, that are around us. And so when I can get quiet and let those things drop, the veil drop that you spoke of, then I feel definitely healthier, grounded, happier, more joyful, more peaceful. And people around me feel the same or resonate that way as well. I can tell a shift in them.
Awesome.
Really good.
What about you, Christina, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I feel like 10 years ago, I wasn't so different from how I am now because I was pretty far onto this kind of self-discovery journey. But I think it's more that I'm just more comfortable within myself and really being honest with myself and expressing from that place versus, like Krystal was mentioning, what others might perceive. And I mean, if we go back 10 years further, I was a completely different being. I was all about, like when my kids were little, and all about, giving, serving, like everything was outwardly focused on everything but myself and my own needs. And so the journey's maybe a little further back, but 10 years ago, I was pretty far into coming back to myself. But I think, I don't know, I guess there's just less judgment towards myself that I'm finding. And maybe, I think it's just not realizing that I don't have to do or force things as much because I'm a doer, make things happen person. So it's more just being comfortable perceiving or having more downtime or down space. And that also goes with the time of my life where I do have older kids. So, it is a time of life thing as well. I have the opportunity for that. So, yeah, not a huge, profound,
That's
tangible thing, but it's more subtle, I would say. If I go back
that's good. That gives me hope because I'm tired of all like the massive change in my life. I would love to have a few decades to sort of settle into something, and I feel like I'm closer to that than ever.
And I think make that intention known. That's what you want. And I think you can create that, So for me, 10 years ago, I would say I was in a space of a lot of fear about everything. I kind of knew it was happening in the world. And I felt like I was very alone in that, like nobody else saw it. And I would cry myself to sleep at night sometimes. I was religious. I would pray that Jesus would come and save us all from this nightmare. And I was afraid for my kids. I was afraid what the world was going to look like when they grew up. I was afraid even with us financially, how are we going to make enough money? How are we going to, I had my whole life, I would say, was fear driven and anger driven. I was very angry too. I was angry at the world. I was angry that this was going on. I was, anger and sadness, I think anger, sadness, and fear were the driving forces of my perception of reality at that point. And so that's where, for me, like when I started learning about multiple timelines and Mandela effects, and maybe this whole thing we call reality is nothing more than a simulation illusion that we're all experiencing together with our consciousness. Like those concepts to some people would be scary, but to me it was actually completely liberating because it's like it made me realize there's so many more possibilities than I ever considered before. And so if I could consider a new possibility, then I can take that further and I can create a new possibility. And it suddenly started like bringing my power back to me. And from that fear, I was able to switch it to like, empowering myself as a creator, as opposed to looking for a savior to come save me. Because I think a lot of people in religion have been that way, where they're taught someone's coming to save you. And so they're always looking on the outside for someone to come save them, when they don't realize they always have that power within to be their creator. Did I cut out?
No.
Okay.
That's a powerful statement. Well, a couple things. The first thing is, I didn't know you back then, Randi, but I would like, no part of you feels like any of those to me now. And I'm imagining that probably you kept that within a lot too, because people wouldn't probably have described you as being angry and fear. They probably would have described you as nice and joyful and playful. But again, it's because we feel like we have to hide all of that and not show all of that. And, you know, I've always had to hide my sensitive side. Like, you know, you're so sensitive, like that's a bad thing. Like, it's a wonderful thing to be sensitive and feel. And I remember an experience where I was cooking some greens in the pan and about to turn the heat on, and this one big leaf of kale like looked up at me and literally like said, "No, like I'm not ready for this." And so I picked up this leaf and I literally had tears in my eyes, and I can cry like thinking of it, because it was a pivotal moment. It's like I'm talking to a freaking kale leaf, but it was telling me that it wasn't ready to be in the pan. And it reminded me of like the Rumi poem where the cook is cooking the chickpeas and the chickpea jumps on the pot and he's like, "Why are you torturing me?" And the cook knocks him down with a ladle and he says, "I'm not torturing you. I'm combining you with the spices of life so that you can be the lovely vitality of a human. Remember when you drank rain in the garden? That was for this." And but in the moment, I literally was asking that leaf, "Do you want to go in the pan and become part of my vitality? Do you want to go back in the bag? Do you want me to put you, like, what should I was literally asking it what it wanted me to do." And, you know, and this is a kind of a story that like people could go, "Oh my God, like you're talking to a freaking kale leaf." But and so I just sat with it for literally a few minutes and kind of asked it, and then it said it wanted to go in the pan. And so that was when I realized that, and I think I'd already learned the work of Cleve Baxter and the Baxter effect and praying over your food and all of that. So I just put my hands over the food and I thanked it, but it reminded, like from that point on, it shifted something in me about nutrition and, you know, things being alive and the consciousness in things. And I had aspects of that as a child, but, you know, I had my moment with the kale leaf where it was teaching me.
You're seeing beyond that facet of the physical world.
Yeah, is that illusion? Is that an illusion that I'm talking to a kale leaf? Well, it was freaking real in that moment. It was very real. So no, it wasn't an illusion to me. It was very real. But,
well, and I think you're probably sharing a space with that consciousness. It's like you became conscious with it, you know, like you projected your consciousness into it, so it reflected its consciousness back to you, to even just share with you, hey, a lesson of some sort that taught you something. And I think that's what we do with all of our reality, whether it's a kale or a person or an animal or whatever. It's like we're merging our consciousnesses in those moments to connect, to maybe see from another perspective, even if it's from the perspective of a kale leaf, you know? So
that's where the question of where to go. That's where I see us going. I see us going to that existence where we're empathic with each other, with, you know, aside from all the political bullshit that's going on and the agendas that are being imposed upon us, you know, people are people, and consciousness is consciousness, and you know, nature and animals, it's all alive, it's all us, it's all aspects of us. And I see where we can live in that unity, and I don't see that as utopian. I see that as just how it is. That's just how it is. Like, that's the way it is meant to be. And so I'm hanging on to that, and that's, you know, in everything I do, I'm, you know, not that I'm conscious of that thought all the time, but that's kind of an underlying driving force underneath where I see we're going. So I'm willing to go through some of the upheaval to understand that the upheaval is necessary to get us to that point. The truth has to be, we have to rip the Band-Aid off and look at these ugly things right now. And that's why I think I have, as such a sensitive person, I'm shocked at some of the things I'm witnessing and reading and hearing and watching, but I'm doing it because it's part of the shift and the transformation, the transmutation of that.
Yeah, you're amazing. I mean, think about it. If you are that sensitive, I don't think I've ever been that sensitive, but you look head on at what's happening on this planet. And I know so many people that I thought were strong that absolutely won't do it. They won't look at it. So kudos to you. I like the way David Icke describes it. He says we have a postage stamp size reality. It's just like a little square, and that's the reality that we've been given, and that's the way things are. This is science, this is education, this is spirituality. And what you're doing by talking to the kale, or what we're doing with our crystals and stuff, is we're saying, hey, there's another layer beyond this postage stamp or this facet of this beautiful sparkling diamond. And we're expanding ourselves so that we can see the big picture, and that is wisdom, and that is where we become creators. So it's very exciting.
Krystal, what was it for you that shifted you from that reality 10 years ago to where you are now? I don't know if you touched on that. I can't remember.
I think the push was from my career. So being laid off and let go from, being made redundant from something that I definitely looked outside myself and completely defined myself by that. And so when that was taken from, me, or I was put in that position, people kept looking at me and they're like, oh, wonderful. Like, well, look, where you can go now and continue that kind of work in a different way. And I was like, I tried it and I tried it, but I kept pushing up against that and trying to continue down that path of just looking outside of myself and, pleasing everyone else and they're like, you're so good at what you do and all of this. And I wasn't having any of it. It really crushed me, to be let go from the position that I was in. But then looking at the opportunities I had to continue down that path, I wanted no part of it. Thankfully, I just kept pushing against that, and it finally came to that point where you have that compression breakthrough. I was just like completely broken, literally falling apart to bring myself back together into, okay, what is the path that I need to be on, or that is speaking most deeply to me and is so joyful within me. And it's completely the opposite of where I was, as to where I am now on this timeline or whatever these experiences are. I think that was that pivotal point. And it was about 10 years ago. So, yeah.
I wonder if there's another aspect of you that didn't get laid off, that continued down that same road. And I would just be curious, like we could, if we will have an opportunity to perceive that reality and then understand why we picked the one where we got laid off. And maybe we were even the creators of it in order to poke ourselves a little bit, say, hey, this isn't really fully who you are. There's so much more you haven't discovered about yourself yet. And we're just going to end that one and play over here by making them lay you off. I always kind of wonder, like, I think we really are the creators of it all in the background. And so maybe if we perceive everything as like a gift to us, like Krystal realized looking back, that was the greatest gift she probably could have ever been given, was to be laid off. And in the moment, it's like we think our world's falling apart when really it's like our whole truth is being rebuilt, restored, I don't know what the word is. It's not quite the right word, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like suddenly we're awakening to a whole new possibility because an old one was shut down for us.
So let me tell you that I absolutely 100% believe that is the truth, because I was presented that opportunity, and I was, at first I was pushing against it, and then I'm like, no, it's time to try this. It's time to put myself out there to do this. And I knew the entire time that it wasn't going to work. And it was a matter of time that that wasn't going to work in that direction. And I said, I don't care. I'm still going that way. And I 100%, 150% pushed through in that direction, realizing that I was going to be coming out the other end, not in that industry anymore, not in that position anymore. But I knew it. I knew it so deeply in me that that's exactly what was going to happen. So, sitting here today, it does not surprise me, and I don't have any, I don't waver like, well, could it have been, or this or that. I'm absolutely certain that I chose that, definitely, and I made that, And then let me tell you, it wasn't easy getting past, knowing that that was and what I was going through, and then having to get through and past and past and past. And going back to the lady that you mentioned in her YouTube channel, there are a couple of people can be in a place or situation for a few years, 5 years, whatever it might be, 1 year, or maybe a month or a day or a week, until you feel that shift and then you push through. And so it's taken me some years to get to that point, and that's why I say this last year's been really pivotal for me, to get through that and feeling definitely more comfortable. Literally only in the past couple of months, feeling this shift in the morning when my body wakes, that I don't have this pain, guilt that I should be getting up and commuting and going to, this or that, and productive in some other way, that I'm super productive as I am in this aspect of me. So that's where, again, illusions came to mind. Wait, I'm creating another illusion. That's an illusion. That's an illusion. So come right back here into yourself, into your own seat, and recognize what's truly here for you now.
And I think that's has our back. Our inner world is always reflecting our outer world, and the clues are always there. They're externally always there. I mean, there are literally numbers and people that will say things, to put you on the right path. But it's so true. Ultimately, when you're laying in bed in the morning and you got to get up and do something, like if you have that sinking feeling day after day, year after year, you're not on the right path. You got to adjust course. That's amazing you did that.
And I think those feelings are to help us recognize that, because, if it was the right space for us, we did feel authentic there, we would be waking up excited for our job, excited to commute, and if you have that vibration of that feeling, you probably are in the right space for yourself. But if it's like, all right, I got to make money, this is what I got to do, force myself to wake up. If it's like painful for you every day to do that, then probably take another look and say, is this really who I am? Is this really fulfilling my passions inside, doing what I'm doing? Or am I living an illusion just to do something, And I think that's, if we don't start to look within, we just play out that program. And it's like we feel productive, and we feel like that's who we are, but we haven't really looked inside yet to double check that. And when we do, when we really feel through it, we say, I'm not sure that is who I am. Maybe there's something else for me to try, because I don't feel like I'm fulfilled in this reality I'm currently experiencing or creating, you might say. My current illusion.
That's why I kind of feel bad for men. I mean, I know it goes with both genders, but like they're born into this planet where they're kind of expected to make money. They're the ones to provide. And so a lot of them, I think, put their real heart's desire and how they want to contribute on the shelf, and then they power through. And I think it's really difficult and miserable for a lot of men. And I think we need to have compassion for them. But also, as a woman who is a stay-at-home mom, I always felt it was right and honorable to do right by my kids and take good care of them. But I also felt like I had so much more to contribute than just being home and making sandwiches and driving them to practice. And so that was a really hard time in my life. And but it always felt right to do right by the kids. So I had to figure out that balance. Now that they're getting older, it's kind of exciting because I have momentum doing some other things, and that's really cool.
And I think it's interesting you say that, because there's a possibility, there's an aspect of you that didn't get married, that didn't have those kids, that went through a career and had great success and did all that. And it's like, and then when you looked at both, you said, you know what? I loved being a mom. I loved being there to make sandwiches for my kids. I loved, because I kind of had that experience in my life where it's like I could see myself as like this business career person with this like business that I could take to the world.
Yeah.
But really my heart wanted to be with my kids. It wanted to be home. It wanted to be our nurturer. It wanted to, you know, pick them up from school and give them kisses goodbye and be there and sing songs. And it didn't want to be distracted by too much other, you know? And so I started honoring that space within me. And it was such a divine space to honor and not feel like I was missing out on something by not putting myself out there so much, you know? And I think we all go through times in our life where it's time to put ourselves out there more, and it's time to just focus on those things, because that brought me more joy than anything could in the business world. You know, being like, you guys know my kids, they're just like these little bundles of joy that just like literally are exploding with it. And it's like I could miss out on so much of that joy if I had to be at an appointment or be in another state or be, you know. And it's like I just kind of said, no, I'd rather be right here in this moment. And so I think we maybe all experience those different ones, and then we come back to what really brings us the most joy. And
this is a powerful time now too, because I feel like there's just more space for any combination where you have stay-at-home dad, you have, like, I've shifted my career from the clock in, clock out to more of a consultant, and I pretty much set my own time, and I work really hard and then I don't. And like I took today off because I wanted to, and there's more flexibility with feeling like, you know, I like to do what I'm doing because it's a good fit for me career-wise, and I still love it, but I love it because it's grown with me, and I've chosen within my profession to let it morph around me. And I've gotten, you know, I didn't do the full-on medical study, anxiety and depression and all of that. I'm like, no, I'm studying holistic things. I can integrate that into what I'm doing. This is my continuing education. So it's kind of grown with me. I didn't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think there's actually flexibility within many, many professions. If we just see that that's a possibility, you can job share, you can work from home part-time. You can, like Melanie said, she can kind of telecommute. There's so many ways to fulfill that side of being productive and having the voice and using our abilities to, you know, make an impact in the world, and to be an amazing parent, and to do creative things, and to have a, you know, intimate world. And there's just so many ways. I think there's just more space to think out of the box and do. It's not the paradigm of, you know, white picket fence, mom does this, dad does this. There's way more options now.
well, and I think speaking to that divine feminine divine masculine that Melanie mentioned too, I think they're really starting to open up to those possibilities, or that divine masculine within us is opening up to those possibilities that we can still create income and money, but like Christina said, bring it in a way that's also honoring us, you know, and sometimes it's about letting go of what isn't honoring us. So from like my husband, it was 2 years ago now, he just said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to commute. I don't want to be gone all day. I don't want to miss everything. I'm tired of it. And I was like, quit. Let's just quit. See what happens. Let's just open up space for the universe to bring something new. And I think that's the biggest fear that holds the masculine back, is that fear of, what if I let go and nothing fills this space? What if I let go of something that's not wanted and I end up hurting my family, or I end up not, you know, being able to make ends meet, or whatever it is. But if you can really truly let go of that with the knowing that the universe has your back, and that something will show up for you, and when it does, you'll know, and you'll move on it, and you'll act on it, and it'll be the right thing for you, the right direction, it will show up. And that's such a scary thing, but you truly have to know it. And it's like, when we did it, it was like almost amazing to watch, because what we thought he might be doing isn't even close to what he is doing. He's still in the same field, but it's like, so it's so different. He's at home now. He works from home 90% of the time. And he still gets calls all the time to go back into banking. He gets offers all the time that he has to reject, because he has to say, that isn't what I want. I'm going to stay focused on what I do want and not go back to this because it's easy. It's like, here's salary, here's all your benefits, here's all this. This is a little scarier in the moment, but if you're not afraid and you keep moving, it's like Krystal talked about that compression breakthrough time. It'll all work out. And so it always works out no matter which path you take. So take the path that's going to fulfill you the most.
I love that. Okay, we're almost at an hour
Just
here. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the video locked up because on my screen, I just see all of you not moving at all. And it's kind of funny because I'm like going.
Yeah, I hope.
Am I in an illusion? Like, what happened?
Mine does that all the time.
It says recording.
Right.
Is it doing that?
Right now you're locked up, but we're not. So I think it's probably your connection.
Yeah, we can see you, but we'll just kind of stalled. So, or we can hear you, I should say. Just can't. Now you're back.
No problem. Probably me.
So we're talking about a lot of illusions. We got the male-female illusion, like the work-life balance, like all of those are things that are up for examination so that we can create a better future. So I love the discussion. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. I'll go ahead and start. I'll pick a word, and then Christina, Krystal, and then Randi. All right. So the word I'm picking is a word I just absolutely love. It's magic. So I think we use magic to work through our illusions. Magic to me is just understanding the best we can the nature of reality, and that our inner world is reflected in our outer world, and that with our consciousness we can do so much to direct how things play out. And the best way to play out the future of our dreams is by acknowledging and seeing these illusions and integrating them into our experience and being conscious about how we create moving forward. So what about you, Christina?
Yes, so my word is quiet. And this last week, for some reason, I had less energy and found myself wanting to nap, which I don't typically do, but it was so lovely. I think I took 3 naps this last week. I hadn't taken naps in probably years.
Love
And
that.
I forgot how lovely that is to just, especially I had my cat right there, and it was just it was middle of the day, and I just allowed that to happen, and with no judgment, and it was really refreshing and lovely and wonderful. And it was like I couldn't have not done that, basically, because I just needed that. And so I think just even if it's not a full-on nap, just having those moments of quiet and where you're not influenced by outside noise is really important.
That's a good reminder. I'll go ahead, Krystal. I started doing that too.
Beauty, that's my word, is beauty. And as always, my what I get and what I'm just grateful for is all of us here to remind each other of different aspects or whatever. So as we started in the beginning and we talked about illusion and what that meant, you reminded me of the beauty, like that we have that choice, and no matter what's happening around us, that that's what I want to choose with things that are going on. And when I recognize illusions outside of myself, I want to come back to the beauty of all of it, the beauty externally, but then the beauty internally, and sit in that quiet place and enjoy that.
Love that.
Okay, so my word is reality. And I picked that word because I think we think of it's the opposite of illusion, but I actually think they're one and the same thing. That our illusion is also our reality. And I love that you picked magic because illusion is also, when you're watching magicians, you think, oh, they're illusions. Well, are they? I don't know. It's magic, right? So it's like, I think our reality is an illusion, and it is magical, and we can create magic in this illusion that is our reality. So I almost think they're all one and the same thing. And once we realize that, we become such powerful magicians over our illusion or our reality. So
Awesome. And I think having friends is a really amazing, awesome thing too, because I hope you guys, and Randy's really good at this, calling out the illusions that we're clinging to. And like, I don't know, I remember when I first met you, you'd be like, well, why do you think that? And you would just keep going. And I was like, okay, Melanie, breathe. Like, because you helped me extract stuff, maybe not extract, but you helped me acknowledge illusions that I didn't see. And really good friends should be able to do that for each other. So I'm really grateful for you guys. And I hope you'll call me out if ever I'm going down a path that seems kind of like an illusion that might not serve my highest good. And maybe I'll have the guts to do that for you guys too. I still have that people pleasing thing though, that I'm like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I do appreciate it when you guys call me out on some of the bullshit that I'm buying into. So.
I challenge you to hurt our feelings.
Yeah, there's a good one.
That'll be my goal.
It's the best. It's the best. I mean, like, I ended up in an hour-long kind of red pill conversation with my accountant yesterday, impromptu, because I'm like, I want the truth, like, and with friends, with the world, with relationship, it's like, I think we really want that. We know when we're being lied to on some level, and it does not feel, and I cannot tolerate that. I don't want to tolerate that anymore. So I'd rather be in a relationship where there was honesty in that versus just acting like everything was fine, or, you know, BSing or saying what I want to hear or putting me on a pet, whatever. That doesn't feel right anymore. So I think it's wonderful to
I love it.
be able to support each other in that way.
Awesome. Any last words, anybody?
Nope. Create a fun illusion.
Yeah, might as
Have fun
well.
with it. Play a lot. Create illusion where you get to play a lot.
Yes. Learn from the children. They're so good at that. All right. See you, dude.
All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.